I'm Chris Gondis with DA Dodd, Job Site Superintendent. We're going to go over the HVAC system for McCourtney Hall. We'll start with the steam system. As it comes in the building from the plant, we've got two different steams. We've got a medium pressure and a low pressure steam system. Medium pressure runs at 70 psi and low pressure runs at 10 psi. The medium pressure steam comes into our building basically just to feed the autoclaves that are located throughout the building. And we have several taps for future autoclaves. Right now we have 3. In general, the medium pressure steam doesn't feed anything else in the building. It just comes around, feeds our autoclaves. We've got taps on each floor, and it comes around back to the condensate receiver pump and out, which we will, by the looks of it, we're flashing off steam into our condensate receiver pumps, so we're in discussion now about adding a flash tank into the system. The low pressure steam comes in from the plant. It comes in and goes to a valve station located in the lower level mechanic room that goes to feed our heating hot water heat exchangers. From that point, it returns back to our condensate receiver pump, and that's the gist of all of our low pressure steam in the lower level basement mechanic room. It also proceeds on up through the building, up to the penthouse. As it proceeds through the penthouse, it goes up to feed the several humidifiers on our 6 air handler units throughout the building, or up in the penthouse. I take that back. We actually have, the way this is drawn in is a little funny, but the low pressure steam does go through and feed our domestic hot water heaters in the heat exchangers in the basement that are just mainly to try to boost the return in the system. It's not actually, we're trying to use the domestic, the hot water feed from campus, and this is just kind of a supplement before it returns back. Everything ties into one central condensate receiver pump in the basement and gets pumped out with a 3-inch condensate line back out to campus.
There's only one condensate pump in the building?
There's one condensate receiver pump, yes.
Yeah, duplex.
Yep, it's a duplex.
And both steam lines obviously come in from the tunnel, and there's the ability to isolate those just inside the building?
There are isolation valves right here as they come in from the building on the low pressure and the medium pressure. And they have just, it can be shut off inside the building, and back at the branch section coming off the tunnel, there's another set of valves. There's actually a double set of valves to be able to shut the system down. And that's for low pressure, medium pressure, condensate lines. Actually, I do believe all systems. As it branches off from that tunnel and as it comes inside the building, there's valves on each section. So in the gist, we've got valves that are 30 feet apart.
Okay. Just while you're on that subject, with chilled water that's buried, actually, there's a set of valves somewhere out at the mains that are like a yard valve, and then there's also valves inside the building?
Yes, with the chilled water system, we have valves right inside the building immediately as they come in the building. We've got 2 valves. But they also have valves buried outside with curb boxes or access to be able to shut them out in the yard, yes. All right, since I'm on the chilled water then, the chilled water comes in our building via underground, stubbed in into the McCourtney Hall from out in campus loop. This in turn goes through and loops through our chiller where the chiller runs during the winter months when the chilled water campus water is off and not in use. We've got a basic loop that goes through the building. We've got 3 12-inch pumps that are mounted along the east wall of the mechanic room. We've got these air and dirt separators that are installed as well. They take a little bit of maintenance. They need to be blown down like maybe twice a year, I do believe it is.
That's a very good point,
I know
because
you had brought that up.
yeah, the guys will see this, but in the first year, they recommend that you blow that down every month,
Okay.
just because of a new system and new stuff that's in there. And after that, maybe once every 6 months or so.
This air and dirt separator, actually, they recommend it be blown down every month of its first year of use. And then 6 months after that, in 6-month intervals, it requires a blowdown. As it goes through the pumps here, we've got several checks. It does a basic loop through the processed chilled water heat exchangers, and in turn transfers that cooling through these heat exchangers to our processed chilled water loop. Processed chilled water loop goes around to each lab, and it's got its own set of pumps, its own air and dirt separator that also needs to be blown down in 1-month intervals for the first year and then 6 months after that. And the processed chilled water loop has drops in each lab with a basic valve bypass. And you'll see it come down in each lab with this kind of orientation. Valve in the middle, valve on each side with threaded plugs on the ends here. You'll see that throughout the building. Those are for future Haskrish units, which they would in turn, it's just a basic another exchanger that they would exchange this processed chilled water through these, and most of the time I've seen them filled with like a DI water or an RO water, and then that will transfer through and go through cooling through their equipment. I've seen it used in campus on the lasers a lot. As that goes through, it's just got a normal pressure differential for backup and a bypass, and that's basically the loop for our processed chilled water. Going back to the regular chilled water, it goes through our lab air handling units and office air handling units and fan coil units. Most of the fan coil units, you got your air handlers in the upstairs. I think it's the air handlers located in Area A, the east wing of the building, and Area B are the air handling units, or sorry, Area A, the east, and Area C, being the north, are the ones that control the labs. The unit located in Area B, in the center of the building, is actually for the offices. We've got several fan coil units throughout the building that it runs through, and for the most part, they're for IT rooms and electrical rooms, is where most of those are located. Everything else for cooling inside the building all comes from the air handlers. The system comes back, loops back through, and returns to plant. We also have our heat recovery chiller, which will turn on when campus system is off and will actually cool this loop. But as that works, it actually rejects the heat instead of going to just the ambient temperatures of the air, and helps boost our heating system in the winter months. It supplements what it can to the system. Our heating loop basically does the same thing. It's got its own pumps just for this loop here around through the chiller. The steam feed comes in to the building and goes and warms up a couple of heat exchangers. Like we discussed in the steam, you've got the big valve station here. It goes through those heat exchangers, transfer around with another air and dirt separator that requires the same maintenance as all the others. Same thing, we've got a duplex of, take this off here, this has been changed, I do believe, to just 2 pumps instead of 3. And as the 2 pumps circulate, it goes around through all the fin tube radiation in the building, the fan coil units, the cabinet unit heaters, and all the reheat coils. And it also goes to the air handler preheat coils, and I'm not sure if that's right anymore. I don't think the air handler preheat coils are included in this anymore with this heating loop. I think this is primarily used off of this preheat through this glycol loop, where it goes through the exhaust fan coil units via the heat rejection heat exchangers and supplements off what it can from this.
Yeah, the preheat is actually the convecta where that heat reserve
Yes.
is.
So being off of this, God, this is actually, this system here is no longer a set of pumps. This is a package, a skid pack, we call the convecta package. This has a steam feed to it, which actually boosts the temperature of this loop to do the preheat on these air handler units. And this unit is circulated through here where we can actually pull heat from the exhaust fan coil units as it's exhausted from the building. It can recover as much heat as it can to also boost this loop to preheat these. In the winter months, as the extra heat is generated from the chilled water, it can be rejected through these heat rejection heat exchangers. And then that can be sent up into the loop and can be absorbed throughout the preheats of the air handler units and help preheat the warm air as it goes through the building.
Or exhausted through the exhaust.
Or exhaust it through these exhaust fan coil units if not needed to preheat these air handler coils. And it can go either way as it comes in through this three-way control valve. It can choose to go through the air handlers or be rejected through the exhaust fan coils. I think that just about covers our heating loop. We've covered the glycol, which hopefully when our chiller guy comes in, he'll be able to explain this chilled water or how the chiller actually operates with the rejection and then the process of the cooling in the winter months. And when we get the presentation from the convecta pack startup people, they will be able to explain it a little bit more too. But in essence, that's our HVAC system for McCourtney Hall.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. There are expansion tanks in some of these systems and not in others. Like the chilled water does not have an expansion tank because, oh no, it does have an expansion
Everything's
tank
got an expansion tank.
for the winter operation.
Every system has its own expansion tank tied in, because when the chilled water system closes from campus, it becomes a closed loop. At that point, when it becomes a closed loop, it would need its expansion to where it couldn't possibly expand out to the campus underground utility lines.
Okay, the chill water, at least when I was working with them on it, does not have an expansion tank because what we do is we only lock down one side of we lock down the return with the return valve. We leave the supply open. So it doesn't circulate through campus, but it gets its expansion and contraction from the campus.
It does have an expansion tank.
It does?
Yes, sir. There is one down there.
And it also has a system makeup water feed in case that were to ever be completely closed off, as it would, if we happen to lose water somewhere, it would make up its own water as well, just as if it was a closed loop on its own.
Okay. Well, we won't address that at the moment, but we will address what we need to talk about.
It's easily valved off. We've got
Well, I
valves.
think the makeup is okay,
Mhm.
but what we have to be careful of is expansion tank because it can become the expansion tank for the whole site. If it, in other words, if it's set higher,
Yeah.
it can force the system up and this whole system can kind of float around.
We do have valves and drains on the expansion tanks. It's when we put a valve in, they say not to, I always put a valve in and take the handle off. You never know when that thing's got to be serviced, and it's just a smart thing to do.
In that case, we might just shut it off.
Yes, sir.
And just have it there. If in the event that they had to drain the plant system,
Yep.
they could open it and then,
Yep. And it would stay on its own.
So, Jamie, you say that you never shut the supply off from the campus on the chilled water, you shut the return off?
The return's the only one with a control valve.
So would the supply from the campus theoretically be makeup?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's makeup and it sets the pressure. It's makeup and it sets the pressure for the.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
For the chill water.
Okay.
Which is
Whatever
why-
it is, you know, it's the same as if it were operating.
Yeah. Like ours, I think our water makeups are set at like 30 PSI, 30, 32, something like that. And the system pressure coming in, it's like 60 something.
Yeah, and what we have happen, like at Stinson Remick, we have the old level control, and the tank is constantly flooded because system pressure is always higher. So it effectively never,
Makes up.
you know, we actually have an automatic valve on the expansion tank that opens it when we shut down chill water, but it never works. 'Cause the pressure is always high, and so it always floods it.
Yeah.
You'd have to set that pressure like 80 pounds or something in order to make it work.
As we notice, it's got our gauges pegged on our pumps because it is so high. You know, we're on a 0 to 100 range, and as it comes in the building at 65, 70 something PSI, and then it goes out of the pump, then you got that boost of an extra like 30 PSI on it. So yeah, they're right at like 90, 95. Yeah, so they're within the range. Yeah.
What I'm saying is right, because I'm quite confident that it's correct, and we'll have to make the changes. You can just say the expansion tank is there, but only in the event that the central system was down and drained or
Yeah.
something like that. But that it gets its pressure from the central system. The chill water does. Now, processed chill water has to get its own pressure. It's an isolated loop.
Yep.
Heating hot water is its own loop. Convecta is its own loop. You know, those all have to have their own expansion tank.
Yep.
So you might just make that distinction.
Okay.
On the campus chilled water loop, there's a control valve on the return as it would leave. The supply side of the chilled water loop from campus is to maintain always to be open. There is an expansion tank in the system that in the event that you would have to drain these central utilities, you could close off the valves located inside the building and we have our own system makeup water, and the expansion tank that would normally be closed could be opened, and this chilled water loop with the chiller would maintain itself for the building. Better? With the makeup water feeds? Okay. And every other closed loop system in this building, being our processed chilled water loop, has a system makeup water feed and its own expansion tank, and as well as the heating closed loop expansion tank and a system makeup water feed. And those consist of the soft cold water from the building. So our makeup water feed's all soft. Our glycol loop, on the other hand, in the penthouse for the Convecta pack, has a glycol fill tank. There's an actual automatic glycol fill feeder located in there in the penthouse that is set for, I do believe it's set for 30 PSI, that will automatically kick on and fill. It has a containment of 55 gallons and will go into alarm when water levels or glycol levels get low.
Okay.
Should we mention it's a 30% premixed glycol?
Yeah, maybe.
The glycol makeup water feed and the glycol contained in this loop is a premix of 30% glycol. Propylene? 30% propylene glycol. Now, we do have some extra totes up there that we didn't get pumped in. That's pre-mix. Do you guys, want to hold on to a tote possibly up there, or maybe fill a drum, or?
I think it would be awesome.
It's
We've
yours.
got two whole totes, not 2.5 up there that are still full.
I think there's enough room. It'd be worth just keeping them there.
Yeah. That's
I
kind of
don't
what
know-
I told the
don't know
guy,
how
just
that-
leave
How
it.
does that stuff age? I mean, is it?
It would be no different than if it was in the system.
But in
I
the
don't know if
event,
it aggregates in the system.
But in the
It
event
does
that
be great, I think.
the glycol feed system actually has an air and dirt separator that is going to require a blowdown once a month for the first year, the same as all the rest of them located in the building. In that event, you would have to monitor the fill of the glycol and possibly add to the tank in the periodic discharge of the air and dirt separator. It'd probably be a good thing to just hold on to. Just every time they do that, they're going to have to, it's going to be dirty. They're not going to be able to put it back in. We will be leaving, with the discharge of the air and dirt separator, we will be leaving 2 totes of 30% glycol mix up there for servicing and maintenance purposes.
I think they're 350.
Sorry.
They're the big,
Yeah.
they're the big ones.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. They'll figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, we've already had issues with that. I think they just fixed a leak in the glycol packs on one of the pumps.
Yeah, any kind of maintenance, you know, in the coils, in the pumps, it'll drain.
The relief valves, and we've got it set up where all the relief valves in that system go back to the glycol feed tank.
Right. Good. Okay.
Good?
All right, so we're ready to go to the field.
Located here is our main tunnel, and at the branch of our main tunnel feeding McCourtney Hall, we have all of the branch valves for the domestic hot water return. We have our low pressure steam, our medium pressure steam, and our condensate, as well as our low pressure steam meter, located halfway down the tunnel entering McCourtney Hall. Located just inside McCourtney Hall from the tunnel, you'll find the service valves for the building, being the medium pressure steam, low pressure steam. You have the chilled water supply and return, the condensate, and the domestic hot water valves. Also, along with this, we also have the in-the-main drips as it comes into the building with their trap assemblies. As the chilled water system enters the building, it immediately goes through a air and dirt separator that requires the 1 month interval blowdown and the 6 months required after that. So as it enters, it goes through a large air and dirt separator as it enters the building. It also has a common return pipe with a 12-inch check valve that prevents any deadhead through the building. It proceeds on over to the 12-inch chilled water pumps with 3 in series. And here above we have a 12-inch check valve that allows the circulation to come back down to the supply from the return to allow the circulation through the building. And here we have a trap primer assembly that is yet to be installed. Here we have our chilled water pumps. Each pump is installed with a automatic flow control and a suction diffuser. As you see on these pumps, there are no triple duty valves for balancing. They're all controlled by these automatic flow controls. As well as with the pumps, we have a pressure differential for each one of them, including a chemical feeder in the rear and a chemical test coupon rack. From this point, from the pumps, the chilled water supply goes out to the building, up to the penthouse to feed the 6 air handler units, and then returns back down and exits out to the campus. Here, just before exiting the building, the chilled water return, there's a control valve in place that will open and close due to the different seasons. Here, also located in our lower level mechanic room, we have our heat recovery chiller. Including with the heat recovery chiller, we have our chilled water supply pumps entering and exiting and feeding out to the building for the winter months. And then here we have our heating pumps required for our heat recovery system. Here we have our heating hot water heat exchangers that are tied into the glycol loop for the Convectipack system. These are either to reject the heat out to the system as needed or to recover the heat from the building as required per the control system. Here we have our heat exchangers, our heat rejection heat exchangers. They are for rejecting the heat from the chiller out into the system, being the glycol system, either to our air handler coils, preheats, or to our exhaust fan coil or exhaust units. Here's our process chilled water pumps. They also are included with automatic flow control valving and suction diffusers, as well as pressure differentials, chemical feeders, and test coupon racks. They circulate the water through our process chilled water exchangers that transfer the chilled water from the campus loop and or our heat rejection chiller to the process chilled water loop to run throughout the building to the several different drops in the labs for future Haskris connections. All of the pumps flow are all balanced by the variable frequency drives. The automatic flow control valves are to limit the maximum that can be circulated through the system. Typical with every closed system loop in the building, like here we have our process chilled water, we have our air and dirt separator that has a automatic air vent off the top, as well as the makeup water feed preset to each system. That also has a expansion tank tied in with its own automatic air vent, pressure gauges, and relief valves for each individual system. Here we have the heating hot water circulating pumps. Typical as all pump assemblies, we have the automatic flow control valve station. We have our suction diffusers. We have our chemical test coupon racks and our chemical feeder, one per system. Also behind us, we have the steam feed makeup for the domestic, or the heating hot water heat exchanger steam feed. That is a control valve station complete with a 1/3, 2/3, and bypass per each heat exchanger. Here, leaving our 1/3, 2/3 stations, the steam leaves and supplies steam heat to our heating hot water heat exchangers, where we have the supply and return circulate through the system. After leaving the 1/3, 2/3 stations, our steam goes and supplies the feed to our heating hot water exchangers, where the water loop circulates through, heating the water and sending it back out to the system. Here we have two steam traps. After leaving the steam condenses down to condensate, leaves the condensate traps to our condensate receiver just past, where it gets pumped out and pumped back out to the campus system. Here we have our main condensate receiver for the building. At the current moment, we have the low pressure steam and the medium pressure steam both tying into this. Eventually, we will add in a medium pressure flash tank before it enters the condensate receiver before it gets pumped back out to campus utilities. Here at our air handlers, this is our preheat coil that is solely heated from the Convectipack and or the recovery system, rejected from the air handlers, or from the chillers downstairs, the lower level. Followed by our chilled water connections to our coils. Here's our humidifier connection to each air handler. We have our control valve supplying in, and we have a return coming back out. We have our end to main drip for our steam drop, and each humidifier is equipped with a fin tube radiation on the condensate side to recover as much heat as possible before it condenses down completely and then just gets purged out to a drain. Here we have our glycol feeder. It is currently operating at 36 PSI. It's a 55-gallon drum with its own pump, positive displacement, to feed whatever desired pressure automatically to the system for makeup glycol feeds. In the event that we would have a leak, this would turn on and automatically feed to the system, and or purging the automatic air and dirt separator. In passing, Jamie noticed the compressors for the cold rooms. They're, instead of being air-cooled compressors, they're actually cooled by the process chilled water system, where we have valves, vents, and we have balancing valves to control the flow. These cool down the compressors, which feeds the refrigerant to the cold rooms located in the Area A, 3rd floor, and there's also one in the lower level mechanic room that feeds a cold room on the 1st floor.